this is your full-time gig, right?
Yeah, it is. I've just hit one year of full-time reselling. I left a job, a factory job of 20 years. In April, I hit 20 years service there, and in May, I walked through the door.
This is the first dude that I'm interviewing. His name is Jamie. So Jamie, introduce yourself and which platforms you sell on.
Yeah, I'm Jamie. So I'm on Instagram and YouTube as Thrift on Fire. I sell on eBay, Poshmark Canada, Poshmark US, Depop, um, Marketplace. I had sold on Etsy for quite a long time. I actually got kicked off at Etsy the middle of this year, which was unfortunate. But yeah, same thing. Vinted Canada went away. I was on that for a while. I pretty much will sell on any platform that allows Canadians.
That's cool. I feel like Canadians have it a little tougher up there. I don't know why. I don't understand that whole thing. Why platforms don't last or platform you're not allowed on certain platforms or they just don't exist. I don't get it. I don't
Yeah,
get
I
it.
think though, like when you think about population, I think New York State has probably a bigger population than all of Canada. Like I think it's just even though we're a big landmass, I don't think we're nearly, as populated as the US.
Right. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but it is pretty huge. So I don't know. I mean, it's not like they're opening brick and mortars out there and they have to pay rent. It's just software, really.
Yeah, the other real tough go in Canada is obviously shipping.
Yeah.
Um, it's a lot more expensive. I'm fortunate enough to use a cross-border shipper where I'm located, which saves a ton of money. So otherwise, the shipping you try to ship a t-shirt and it's going to cost you like $18. It's pretty tough.
Yeah. So like even within Canada, it's expensive to ship within Canada.
It's worse to ship in Canada. It's cheaper to ship to the US from Canada. It's crazy.
Imagine that. That's crazy. That is crazy. Oh, Etsy. Yeah, that's another one that's just they're ridiculous with their policies and everything.
Yeah, well,
Fees.
yeah, in my particular situation, I mean, I'll just take ownership. I was at fault. I was selling brand new items on Etsy, and I was just told by some friends that it was okay.
Mm.
And I just assumed that they knew what they're talking about without doing any research, and I knew better. So, live and you learn.
So which platform do you enjoy selling on the most? What's your favorite one that you do the best on?
So I started on eBay, which is probably the hardest platform to start on. I still enjoy it the most, but it's funny because when I started, I considered myself, I would sell everything under the sun. And then now more and more people who either know me personally or know me from like doing stuff online consider me a clothing seller. And I've been told a bunch of times that I'm a clothing seller. And I'm like, am I though? But yeah, the more and more I think about it, yeah, I guess I am. And becoming more into clothing, Poshmark's really been a really big part of that. And I've enjoyed Poshmark a lot. eBay's still my first love, and I think they compete head to head pretty good for me. But yeah.
So with eBay, I'm hearing that there's the three stages of the eBay seller, which is the first one is I sell anything. That's when you first start out. You don't do any research. You think it looks cool. You put it on eBay. You think it's going to sell well. The second stage is the checking the value of the items stage. Oh, this is going for this much. I'm checking the solds and it's sold for this much. You become that person. And then the third person is the sell-through rate person, which is like checking sell-through rates before you even source the item, making sure it's going to sell. So which stage are you at? Are you at the sell-through rate stage?
I am, but I'm also in the stage of my reselling business where I'm okay with having long tail items. So I'm okay with stuff sticking around for a year
Right.
and a half to sell if it's the right item for the right money, right? Yeah, I mean, it's tough because if I'm sourcing at a garage sale and I'm already have a GoPro or something on and I'm filming, if it's going to be in that situation, I don't necessarily want to comp everything. If it's something that I've picked up before and I know has a good track record, over time you do use the knowledge that you've learned from selling,
Hmm.
things in general. So it's a combination of both. I think when you're starting out though, you should 100% be looking to see if it's actually going to sell on
Hmm.
eBay or not, or on Poshmark or wherever you want to sell. eBay is just such a great resource because you can actually look and physically see things that have sold in the last 90 days, just on your phone.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they've been around so long. They have so much data. It's ridiculous. Yeah, you can do everything from your phone. You're right. That's pretty cool. So are you live selling on Poshmark?
Yeah, so when they first kicked it off, the live selling on Poshmark, I tried a couple of lives and I was comfortable doing it because I'm already doing stuff on YouTube and online, and we're doing lives anyway. I just I didn't really love it. And then I just kind of gave up on the actual live but I've been doing the auctions, but I'm using your app, right? I'm just running the silent
Mhm.
shows automated, and that's been fine. I've dabbled in Whatnot a bunch of times. Same thing. Like I'm comfortable enough on camera. It just I'm not in love with, selling things at a lower value all the time.
Yeah. You said that you thrift with a GoPro on. What is the craziest thing that you've found that's actually on camera with your GoPro?
Um, it's a good question.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm sure if I wasn't put on the spot, I could think about it. But yeah, like things, something like that I wasn't aware of. Like I picked up a bunch of like uh Nintendo, like 8-bit Nintendo games, original console, right? And I thought, okay, $5, $20 games, nothing too special. I kind of just bought them all up. And I brought one home and it wound up being worth a couple $100. But that was just sort of dumb luck. And
That's cool.
I find a lot of times the way I like to buy things is in a bigger lot and I'll figure it out later. If you can get it cheap enough, and you're not worried about maybe having to lot stuff up, or maybe you're going to donate stuff or get rid of stuff you don't want. A lot of times that model can work out if you're really trying to bulk sell.
Thrifting with a GoPro. That's definitely putting yourself out there
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, my particular Goodwill bins will not let you film in there. I've seen people do it, and I've actually seen videos online of that store, but they usually get like either thrown out or or yelled at by some other people in there. But yeah, other than that, like I don't mind recording in thrift stores or garage sales.
That's cool. You guys should check out his channel too. It's Thrift on Fire.
Yep,
Is
yep.
that right? We'll put that info below so you guys can check him out. I've seen a few of his videos, pretty awesome. Kind of just hooked into a few of them. I was just like couldn't stop watching. So your typical reselling day.
Yeah, so I've been doing it full time for a year. I obviously was doing it part time for about 3 to 4 years prior to that. Seriously, I would say the last part-time year I was putting as much effort as I'm putting in now. So I mean, I was definitely going hard at it. But yeah, this is a full-time thing.
That's awesome. So every day when you wake up, you're full on reselling. What does a day look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm an early riser anyway. But when I wake up, first thing I do is, so the day before, I usually try to leave myself a little bit ahead. So I'll have at least 5 items in draft. So I list 5 items. I will look to see what's sold overnight because uh any cross listing thing that I'm using doesn't automatically delist. So I make sure that I delist anything that's sold from other platforms. And then depending on the day, if it's a sourcing day, then I go leave and source. If it's a day where I'm going to take pictures or clean stuff, then I sort of do that. And some days is a mixture of both, but those are the things that I like to do just to get it out of the way. That could include shipping in the morning too. I try to ship maybe 3 times a week, roughly.
Right, right. So you don't have like any dedicated day that you do this, then I do that. So it's sort of like you go by feeling and what's going on.
I sort of do because so like Mondays and Thursdays I go to the cross-border shipper, which is about an hour away from my house. Like the only positive thing about going there, besides saving a lot of money on shipping, is the Goodwill bins is literally around the corner. It's like 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So I can pay for the gas money. I can stock up on some inventory. So it's definitely worth the drive up there for me. Just luckily enough, they're just next door to each other. Otherwise, it would be, very inconvenient to go up there. So those days are definitely shipping days. Um, and then other than that, like the shipping days are also my main sourcing days because I'm already out of the house. So I live rural. I don't live in a town. I live about 30 minutes outside of any town in the countryside. So if
Yeah.
I'm leaving the house, it's going to be purposeful. I don't want to just leave, to do something small.
Right. Yeah. Especially if it's an hour away. So when you're out thrifting, what is one brand or item that you're always constantly on the lookout for?
So I'll look for just about anything, but I love jerseys and vintage t-shirts, which I think for, a guy, that's probably a normal thing. Like I know you can sell my buddy John. I have a podcast with him called A to Z Reseller Podcast. He deep dives in women's clothing and he knows all kinds of brands and he's super into it. Well, it's not that he's into selling women's clothing, but he knows the brands to pick up that sell well.
Right.
Me, when I look at my top brands that sell on Poshmark, it's like Nike is my number one. I wouldn't say most people would have Nike as their number one, as it is a good brand, but it's not like necessarily one of the ones people search for all the time. Um, but yeah, I think it has a lot more to do with because NFL, like there's so many jerseys that are branded Nike, so that definitely throws the price up a little bit. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard for me to pinpoint something I'd go after because if it's interesting to me, I would look it up anyway. But I mean, anything that's like 90s or older band shirts would be stuff that I'd be looking at. Sometimes I'll just cruise down the aisle and purposely just look for like a single stitch shirt. So I'm not really
Yeah.
digging through the rack. I'm just looking at the stitching and then I could check out the shirt. So I'll do stuff like that.
So typically, when you're sourcing these things and you bring them home and you list them, how long does it usually take for them to sit or sell?
Yeah. Well, like most things, you hope the turnaround is quick. Um, and if you price it right, it could be out the door in a couple of weeks would be normal, you
Right.
know. Um, but there are things that you hang on to because there's going to be items that are valuable that need the right person to buy. And that would be like maybe some like 70s or 80s jersey that's kind of tattered and probably most people wouldn't pick up. But if you look close enough, there's a few that have sold for a lot of money because they are collectible to somebody. They're probably going to put it, in a frame or do something with it, display it. So stuff like that obviously takes like a lot longer to sell, but yeah. So it's a variety for me.
Right. So even like stuff you'd say that's kind of damaged, kind of tattered, can sell if you title it the right way,
Yeah.
possibly.
Yeah, and I know I was just talking to somebody else about this too, and I think there's nothing wrong with picking up clothing that has damaging, any kind of damaging repair. The thing about it is, especially on eBay, is you want to disclose all the flaws. Me personally, I'll take a photo and point at like, if it's a snag or a stain, like you want to show those things so that somebody doesn't get it and they're like, well, you didn't say it had any of this stuff. It doesn't, so like disclosing all that stuff is probably the biggest thing not to get returns or anything like that. Or sometimes they'll even, you'll see people in the title, they'll put read, and then in the description, you hope they'll go down and read the actual flaws. But
Right. Right.
yeah.
Sort of kind of like to draw them in with the title. You don't want to kind of give away too much about the item first. You want them to click and actually see
Yeah.
that first. So if you title it like, oh, vintage shirt has damage, I mean, it might turn some people off, right?
Right. Yeah. But but like vintage t-shirts that have like pinholes or like some people like that look, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not necessarily a bad thing. It can still sell for good money. I've sold tons of shirts that are stains and have rips for, in the hundreds of dollars still.
Yeah. It just goes to show you. It's like, it's not always about, it doesn't have to be perfect. People will still buy it.
Yeah.
So for cross listing, how many items a day are you cross listing to other platforms?
So my mindset is still eBay first. So the reason I say that is because I'll list a minimum of 5 things every day on eBay, and then I'll cross list to the platforms that they need to go to. So like, if I'm going to list, I'm sitting beside a bunch of comic books. If I'm going to list comic books, I'm probably not going to list the comic books on Poshmark, right? I know you can sell hard goods and video games and those things on Poshmark too. I choose not to for the most part. So really it's 5 things minimum, and then any appropriate platforms to get cross-listed to. And then if I have a day where I'm cleaning or or if I've bought like a bulk buy of stuff that's easy to list, I might list another 10 to 15 things in a day. But at the end of the day, like I said, I always like to have those extra 5 things saved for the next day. So I'm starting the day off on the right foot.
Yeah, that's true. I always tell people to post it on eBay first because they have the most fields and can tell you the most information about the item, and you could do comps on that platform, and it's pretty easy you could list so many things in one day on eBay. And then take the cross listing software we have, crosslisting.com, and we have smart fill. So you can smart fill everything to the other platforms in like less than a minute. You can just cross post to 4 or 5 platforms. And it's so easy because eBay has all that information for you already. So that I do agree with you with listing on eBay first. It makes it so much easier. So if you weren't reselling, what would you be doing? Would you say?
Yeah. So like I said, I did work in a factory for 20 years. I know it wouldn't be that.
Right.
uh, I would be some sort of other side hustle. I know, me and my wife just bought another business last year. The timing couldn't have been worse, but the business couldn't have been better. We actually bought, she's been working at a spa. So we bought a spa. So me and her 50-50 owners in this spa. Um, but it would be something else, like I said, another side hustle or something else where I was in control of my own time. Because at the end of the day, I think I value my free time and my ability to do what I like when I like over money. That's not to say that I don't make good money, because I do make really great money, and I wouldn't complain about that in any way. But it would definitely be something that I was in control of my time, because I think that's the most valuable thing for me anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. What other side hustles, if you don't mind me asking, were you dabbling in any other side hustles before reselling?
Yeah, so I was dabbling in one that I wanted to get out of, and that was what got me into finding reselling like this. Do you remember, or maybe it's still maybe relevant in your area, but when people had Android boxes and Cody and the free TV thing?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was doing that. I was programming Android boxes, and but I'd have people contact me all the time, right? Like, oh, this thing isn't working, it's down, and like anything, most times it's just like, okay, like my grandmother shouldn't have this, and those were the type of people who are trying to save money, and it was good money, and it was good extra money, and it definitely paid for a couple, family vacations and stuff like that. So it was cool, but I was just like, man, I can't be having people knock on my door all the time.
Oh,
My
yeah.
my phone blowing up. Um, so I was just looking, it was hard because when you start making extra money doing anything, I'm like, well, how am I going to replace that? Because I'm kind of used to it. Is there a way? And I actually stumbled across rally routes, and which was really cool. And then I found a whole bunch of other YouTubers online. The biggest problem was, over time, I found there was not a lot of Canadian content. Um, and shipping is one of the huge things. So when you see these guys pick something up super cheap, it's like, well, that's cool. But then if you do that and you try to sell or you try to ship it, it's like the shipping pretty much eats up everything, right? Like, so it was tough. So that was also one of the reasons why I wanted to try to get into YouTube a little bit, was just sort of to like give somebody who was looking for what I was looking for a little bit of information to at least start.
Right. Yeah. YouTube is great. I think it's good long term as well. Your videos will be up there for years. And people can find that kind of information for years. And brands and stuff, those, even if the brand goes out of business, it actually might make them be worth more money in the future. So anyone who finds your channel can learn about brands and items, and it can still be worth a ton of money in the future. So it's always a lot of value in YouTube videos, in my opinion. I mean, most YouTube videos. But so besides YouTube, do you have any other sort of social media assets that you post on, like Instagram or anything else?
Yeah. So I have an Instagram page, and then I do have a Facebook page as well, but it's mostly the Facebook page is mostly just to drive people back towards YouTube. I'm just like posting links from videos, and there's the odd thing that's maybe like new content, but it's a lot of reused content over there. And I tried messing around on TikTok for a little bit, but
Mm.
I'm too old for TikTok. If I'm gonna be honest for you, it's okay. It's just not for me.
Yeah, it's more of a younger platform. Would
Yeah.
you say that you having a YouTube channel has helped your reselling business?
Um, yeah, I think to some extent it's helped me. It's kept me honest in a lot of situations where you could potentially maybe not be.
Mhm.
Whether that's, if you're filming yourself, like, negotiating with somebody, you could probably take advantage of people a lot. I think I'm pretty fair with people. And I think it helps you learn too. It also, when you make I like I don't like to make mistakes, obviously, but when I make mistakes, I like to share those with people too online, to show like, hey, this is what happened. This is sort of like how I'm dealing with it. I think the worst thing you could do probably as an online presence would be to pretend like you're perfect, or like that problems don't happen,
Yeah,
because you're going to run into problems, and hopefully they don't scare you away from reselling, because it'd be very easy just to be like, throw your hands in the air and be like, guys, I can't do this. Right.
absolutely. I mean, there's a ton of people on Facebook groups, Instagram, and you're only seeing the good parts
Yeah.
of life of their reselling business. You don't see all the nuances that go into it. And a lot of people aren't holding themselves accountable either. They're not transparent. So definitely your YouTube channel keeps you transparent, keeps you uh, with integrity. And I think it's a beneficial thing to do for sure. There's too many people that are just sort of gloating and sugarcoating things when it's not reality. The reality is way different than what you see in reselling. Uh, all parts of reselling. What is your biggest pet peeve? What pisses you off about anything in the reselling industry?
Yeah. I mean, in particular on eBay, the idea that they still have a platform where you could buy something from me and just not pay. And I can't do anything about it. I have to sort of wait it out for 3 days. That's annoying, right? Like, what other platform is there out there where you don't have to just have some sort of payment type set up for when you buy something, it triggers the payment. That's not this. Look at Poshmark. You can cancel. They give you a 3 hour window to change your mind, right? I
Yeah,
think I think that's fair. I don't think I don't think it has to be 100% instant, but I think when you commit to buy something on any other platform, you commit to buy it. So I would say that's probably my biggest pet peeve. Besides, the only other thing, it would also probably be eBay related, is just the way that the feedback is structured on eBay, that it's just so it's all for the buyer, right? It's almost like it's an open platform to be scammed sometimes.
That's right. It's like Amazon. They're all about the customer,
Yeah.
which is okay, but you need to give something back to the sellers. They're the ones that are making the money for the
Yeah, for sure.
platform.
And I think that's how Poshmark runs their show, as far as I see it anyway. They're like, I think they're very fair, but I also think because they're probably in control of the shipping and customer service part of it, yeah,
Mhm.
they're not gonna deal with somebody's nonsense, you know.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Agree with that. It is summer now.
Yeah.
Do you see a slowdown at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think this year in particular has been slower. Like I just use QuickBooks to do my accounting, and I can see that everything is down a little bit. I think for me though, because I still, even though I typically do list more clothing, I'm still listing video games, collectible toys, things that I feel like sell more often than just clothing. The other thing I guess I never talked about is shoes. I'd probably say shoes are one of the biggest used shoes are one of the biggest things that I sell. And there's never a time where somebody doesn't need
That's
shoes. And
true.
so so
Yeah.
yes, I think there's a such thing as summer slowdown, but I think you can, if you keep listing, keep doing your doing, I think you'll come out of it regardless.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I feel like, like you said, shoes, the feet are the most used part of the body, and
Yeah.
shoes are the most worn item of clothing. So people definitely go through shoes a lot. I feel like you said, shoes are good all year round to sell. I don't see that slowing up much during the summer. So, what are some of the things that you do to kind of counteract summer slowdown?
Yeah, I think just like I said, list like a variety of things really does help because if there's items that aren't selling, there's probably categories where there are things selling. And I think when you go into collectibles, it's tough when we're in a, I wouldn't want to say we're in a recession because no one's officially called that, but people don't have the extra money to spend on certain things. So like if your collectible stuff isn't selling, there's still probably a good chance that other things would sell. Like I said, people always need, home goods. People, like I said, certain types of clothing, depending on the type of year. Yeah. So I just think listing a variety of things does really help.
So, Jamie, what would you recommend to people who are just starting out or who are frustrated in this niche? Because there are a lot of people giving up every single day because they can't deal with it. They can't deal with the frustrations, the slow sales. What would you say to those people?
Well, I would say if you're first starting out, your best bet would be to find probably stuff in your own closet or around your house to sell that you don't have any money into. Like you do obviously have money into it because you paid for it at some point, but you're not going out and sourcing it. So if you're just wanting to dabble in it and try, you probably have a ton of stuff around your house you could just list online to see what happens. If you're going to go out of the house and spend money in items, I would definitely go on eBay and just comp items. So you can see that an item's sold, right? But then sell-through rate is a pretty big thing, especially if you're starting. Poshmark's different, but if you're just starting on eBay, they're only going to let you list 10 things. So you don't want to list 10 things that are going to sell in 6 months. You want to list 10 things that are going to sell right away. If I was going to give you an idea of something to look for, go look for Mario Kart for Nintendo Wii, right? That's going to probably sell within 1 or 2 days of you listing it, regardless if you have zero feedback. You could probably sell the same item really quick on Poshmark. Items like that are just desirable. So if you find stuff like that, it'll at least help you figure out, okay, now I sold this. Now how do I ship it? You'll have to figure out the rest of it, right? The worst thing you can do is just keep collecting things that aren't going to sell. So like if you find things that have high sell-through rates when you're starting, or things that you have a very little money invested in, and I think that would be the best advice for someone starting out.
Right. And for seasoned sellers, and some of our seasoned sellers are truly frustrated. They've been selling for years and they're thinking about giving up. Do you have any advice for the seasoned seller as well?
Yeah, I would think like mix it up. Like whatever you're doing, it's not to say that it's not going to eventually work again, but if you're just stuck in the same rut or you're really niche down and the only thing you sell is this particular thing and it's not selling, maybe just veer off and try something else for a little bit. It might even be fun, and if you're having burnout, it might even reignite the excitement, because I think the reason why people like reselling is because it's fun. I mean, you get to shop, you get to turn something that you spent very little money into a larger amount of money. And every once in a while, you'll find a grail or something that it really blows up, and it's such a rush, right? You're almost like chasing that high of finding something cheap and selling it high. But yeah, I think maybe just trying something new.
For sure. Try something new, switch it up, list up a variety of items, categories, see what does well for you during the season. And then if you see it doing well, scale it up, try to get more of those items. Jamie, this was an awesome interview. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to put all of Jamie's links in the description below for you guys to check out his closet and his eBay store and his YouTube channel. So, Jamie, thanks so much. And we'll check back in with you in a few months and see where you're at.
All right, thanks so much.
All right. You have a good one.
You too.